We recognize that the adapted excerpt from Joshua Butler's forthcoming book, Beautiful Union, which, let's click on this link. Oh, look, you could buy it on Amazon. Lacks sufficient context to be helpful in this format. So, lacked sufficient context to be helpful in this format. Not that it was wrong, not that we disagree with things that were in there and we didn't know. Like maybe some people think, oh, well, they just, had a deal with Multnomah and they just put it up there and they didn't know. Well, once again, this is one of the guys who's going to be a fellow with the Keller Center for Cultural Apologetics, which is run by the Gospel Coalition in partnership with the Gospel Coalition. And like, it's not just like a partnership where you're just like, oh, it's just like a sponsorship. That is not what this was. And so they knew what was in the book. They had it. And here again, they're doubling down. They're not apologizing for anything. Because all it was is that it lacked sufficient context to be helpful in this format. The excerpt was taken from the first chapter of Beautiful Union, and you could download and read the entire introduction and first chapter here. I did that. You don't need to. There's nothing in there that's going to change anything that was written in that thing that we read yesterday. There's only more troubling stuff, which makes me very concerned for this book, makes me very concerned for the Keller Center for Cultural Apologetics in general. And again, I'm not one of those guys who's like, everything is woke. Like, you destroy it all. And anytime Tim Keller's name comes up, they're just like, they naturally, just out of habit, just kind of reach for a pitchfork. Like, I'm not that guy. I'm a fan. I won't say I'm a fan. I've been helped by the Gospel Coalition. Okay, some of the writers at the Gospel Coalition I really respect, and this is insane to me that even after all the pushback that they got, where almost nobody, there were like two guys on Twitter who I've never heard of. One of them was an editor for the Gospel Coalition, but there were like two guys that were like, we'll defend this. And everyone else in all of Christendom, all online Christendom decided to be like, no, this is wrong. There's so much that's messed up in here. Yes, there's some stuff that's like we're just going to make fun of and it's humorous, but also there's some really dangerous stuff mixed into here. Basically, everyone said that. And still, the Gospel Coalition is not apologizing. And instead, they are doubling down and saying, you just don't get it. I am so sick of this. All right, there are other things that we could talk about, but I'm just going to rant for a minute. All right. I am so sick of the ivory tower stuff with the Gospel Coalition, with other organizations, with teachers themselves against the internet. Thinking that the internet doesn't matter. Thinking that, let me go to this. All right, you remember this? Brett McCracken, one of the main guys at the Gospel Coalition, calling this piece of filth. All right, this excerpt. I'm not saying that the writer is. I'm saying that the work is a piece of filth. All right, it's smut. It's smut writing. His forthcoming book, Beautiful Union, is the Protestant magnum opus on sexual ethics we have been waiting for. You remember that? Well, he just deleted it. Didn't interact with anybody. Didn't apologize. There's nothing there. You can go to his Twitter. There's nothing there. Called it the magnum opus for sexual ethics. Are you kidding me? But no need to say anything. The Gospel Coalition, this is what they're willing to put out there. This ticks me off. Everyone online is saying this is messed up, and you're just saying you don't get it. You're not clever enough. You just lacked context. Here's the context, and now it should be helpful in this format. No. Gospel Coalition, you don't understand. The internet is filled with people who are actually pretty smart, and I'm so sick of these ivory tower theologians and megachurch pastors who just hide away, and they use the internet, they use social media as a megaphone. They don't talk to us. They don't interact with us. They don't actually have dialogue about things. They just push out Bible verse. Here's a link to my book. Bible verse. Here's my next podcast. Bible verse. Here's my next speaking engagement. Make sure you pay $340 to come and hear me preach for 8 hours. Enough of this. The internet deserves to have some interaction. You know why? Because we're people. We're not just avatars. We're not just avatars to receive all your books and your products. We're not robots. We're people. And we have thoughts. And some of us have been to school. If you want to get on your ivory tower high horse self-righteousness and say that, okay, well, we know what's best for everyone. And if there's pushback, we don't need to argue with that because they're just the internet. That pushback is coming from theologians. That pushback is coming from local church pastors. That pushback is coming from people who understand what is being written and disagree heartily. Enough of this ignoring of the peasants. Because we don't have 20,000 followers on Twitter. What's Kevin DeYoung doing with 158,000 followers on Twitter anyway? Like, what is that? Talk about megachurch pastor. I'm sorry. I found that out. I looked it up after I did my stream the other day, and I was like, how many followers does he have? 158,000? What the heck? And then you go on to Instagram, and some of these guys have thousands and thousands, but they don't interact. There's no dialogue. There's nothing for us when we have any questions. They don't answer them. When we push back on something, and again, the entirety of the internet push back on this thing. You just don't understand it. You don't get it. I'm tired of it. I have a BA. I have an MA. I have an MDiv. I've pastored for a decade. All right. I'm not the smartest guy who talked about this. There are guys with PhDs who are like, no, this is awful. And I'm not just talking about a few. Like, this was everywhere. Thousands and thousands of pastors and theologians mixed with like congregants, normal Christians who know their stuff too. And we shouldn't belittle that and say, oh, you didn't go to seminary, so you don't get a say. Like, everyone has a say on the internet. It's a great equalizer. And I'm just tired of these guys pretending like we don't exist. That all we are is like just cattle to go from one conference to the next conference. Buy this book to that book. Now, are there good guys attached to this stuff? Yeah. Sure. There are guys who are honestly just trying to do ministry. Like, and they're trying to help people. But people do that online too. Let me do this too. All right. This is frustrating. All right. I don't really consider what I do here online a ministry. I don't. Like, I'm just a guy in my basement reacting to stuff. I don't really call it a ministry. But I was listening to some guys. I won't say who, but I was listening to some guys, people that you probably know, and they were talking about the idea of social media ministry and how it's, just false, essentially. That you can't do that because you're not with people. The irony of 3 authors talking about, social media not being ministry, or that you can't do ministry on social media because you're not with people, is ridiculous. All right. That is just like hypocritical to a degree I can't even understand. Like, these authors aren't with us. Like, these people who push their books And some of those books are great and they should be pushed. But like they push that and say, you guys need to buy all these books from me and I will disciple you in this way of, having this teaching imparted to you through this book, but that can't happen through the internet is so bizarre to me. It's a medium. The internet is a medium. Social media is a medium to be able to communicate a message. It's no different than a book. Just because some people are mad because there aren't any gatekeepers yet, although there probably will be at some point, but there aren't any gatekeepers yet on who gets to be, platformed on social media. It's just really up to you, how hard you're going to work, your original ideas, what you're going to create. There's no, well, you have to talk to this publisher, and if you get through with that publisher, then you get to go and, actually have a book, this little book. You get to be part of this other book that has 15 chapters from 15 authors that are all blog posts, but we're going to sell it as a book. And then if you do that well and that sells well and you sell 2,000 copies, then you get a big book, and now you get to be on a platform next to that guy that you've always admired, and you get the respect, and then you get to decide who gets to come after you. Those days are gone. I'm not trying to be prideful, but if you want to talk about thousands, I can get more thousands of people to watch a video than you can get to sell a book, most likely, unless you're Tim Keller. I'm just saying. And I'm not very good at it. Stop gatekeeping and stop neglecting people. Like, don't just look at social media and be like, oh, social media. And these pastors who go on social media and complain about social media to their thousands of followers when their church is 300 people. Do you not see the hypocrisy there? Do you not see the irony of complaining about social media when you realize that that's how you got platformed? I could drop names. I'm so angry about this. I'm way too angry about this thing. I just hate that this is how we're reacting to all of the internet saying this was bad. You don't get it. It's too much for you. Gospel Coalition, do better. And start treating the internet and social media with some respect. And pastors, if you're a pastor and you watch this, because I know, I get pastors. I get pastors that who contact me. All right? And if you're one of the good ones, you're one of the good ones, okay? But, be nice to people online. We all matter. We all have a say now. I'm sorry if that bothers some people who worked really hard to get ahead and to be able to be it's a cool thing to publish a book. I get it. I've always wanted to publish a book. I understand that, and I understand what it takes to get there and how hard that is. And I know some people might be frustrated that these people on the internet can just turn on their camera, put up a few lights, and all of a sudden they get to have a say. Yeah. That's how the internet works, guys. And for those people who are also like, oh, you can't have conversations online. You need to deal with people face to face. Except for when I want to do it, and then I'll tweet whatever I want about Beth Moore. Those people, we're going to have conversations online. We're going to talk about things that people are talking about online because online stuff matters. Maybe I'll have to push out an apology for this. I'm not apologizing for anything. All right. I said what I said, internet.